You step into a cafe on a crisp autumn afternoon. The air smells of roasted beans and cinnamon, and a low hum of conversation wraps around you like a blanket. You approach the counter, eyes scanning the menu, latte, cappuccino, flat white, and suddenly the simplicity of coffee fractures into a galaxy of choices. Oat milk or almond, extra shot or vanilla syrup, whipped cream, cocoa dust, a dash of cardamom. You deliberate, weighing preferences you didn't know you had, convinced this moment is a testament to your freedom. But what if this ritual of choice is not liberation, but a sleight of hand? Consider the barista behind the counter. They've memorized this menu, this liturgy of options, yet none of the drinks are their invention. The flavors, the branding, the very idea of a pumpkin spice latte, all were crafted by unseen hands, marketers, trend analysts, corporate boards. You stand at the end of a long chain of decisions made long before you arrived. The sugar-free syrup, the biodegradable cup, the font on the menu, each detail a brick in a maze you didn't build. You choose yes, but only from paths already laid. Let's step back. Imagine a mouse in a labyrinth. It scampers left, then right, pausing at dead ends, doubling back. To the mouse, each turn feels like agency, a series of conscious decisions. But the scientist observing it knows the truth. The maze has a design. Its walls predetermine every possible route. The mouse's choices are illusions, bounded by barriers it cannot see. Are we so different? From childhood, we're funneled into corridors of expectation. Schools teach us to solve problems, but rarely question who framed them. We're praised for choosing careers, partners, lifestyles, yet how often do we interrogate the menu we're handed? The philosopher B.F. Skinner argued that free will itself is a myth, that all behavior is shaped by rewards and punishments, etched into our environment. A child learns to share not from some innate morality, but because approval follows. An adult climbs the corporate ladder not out of passion, but because society equates success with salary. We mistake conditioning for choice. Now, open your phone, scroll. Each click, a news article, a viral video, an ad for shoes, feels like a whim. But beneath the glass, algorithms trace your fingerprints. They learn your pauses, your late-night searches, the photos you linger on. Slowly, they sculpt a hall of mirrors, reflecting your desires back at you. You rebel. Even defiance is commodified. The punk buying a leather jacket, the activist sharing a slogan, both feed databases, their dissent reduced to data points. Personalization becomes a cage, its bars invisible, padded with the illusion of volition. The existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre warned of this. He called it bad faith, the act of surrendering our freedom to roles prescribed by others. The waiter who becomes his job, the mother who loses herself in motherhood, the student chasing grades instead of wisdom. We cling to these scripts, he argued, because true freedom is dizzying. To choose anything, to step outside the maze, is to confront the abyss of infinite possibility, so we retreat into pretense, mistaking the familiar for the chosen. Yet here's the paradox. Awareness unravels the illusion. When you notice the walls of the maze, the ads that manipulate, the traditions that constrain, the apps that predict, you begin to dissolve them. Ask yourself, who wrote this menu? Who benefits from my choices? The coffee, the mouse, the algorithm, they're not villains. They're mirrors, revealing how deeply we crave the comfort of limits. So, tonight, as you drift into sleep, ponder this. What if freedom isn't the absence of walls, but the act of seeing them, of choosing even within them with eyes wide open? The mouse may never escape the maze, but in noticing the turns, the dead ends, the hidden cheese, it finds a neat, quieter kind of liberty. Picture yourself in a small, stuffy room. You've volunteered for a study on visual perception. The task is simple. Identify which of 3 lines matches a reference line. You lean forward, squinting, Line B is clearly the answer, but the first participant disagrees. Line A, he says. The next agrees, and the next. Your pulse quickens. The answer is obvious, yet the room hums with consensus. What do? This was Solomon Ash's experiment, a master stroke in unmasking. Conformity. Over a third of participants faced with unanimous wrong answers folded. They doubted their eyes, their reason, even their sanity to avoid standing apart. The fear of isolation, Ash found, runs deeper than the love of truth. We are social creatures, hardwired to seek belonging, even at the cost of self-betrayal. Now, watch the starlings, thousands of birds moving as one, a shimmering cloud that twists and dives without a leader. Biologists call it emergent behavior. Simple rules, followed blindly, create the illusion of collective intelligence. A bird need only mimic its nearest neighbors, so too with humans. Our choices ripple outward, shaped by the invisible pull of the crowd. Think of the scripts we inherit. A child learns to clap when others clap, to cry when others cry. Laughter becomes contagious. Silence, unnerving. We applaud standing ovations we don't feel, adopt slang we don't like, and chant slogans we don't understand, all to avoid the vertigo of dissent. Even our identities are borrowed. The clothes we wear, the gods we pray to, the way we grieve or celebrate. These are hand-me-downs, stitched together from centuries of whispered, "This is how it's done." Modern life amplifies this chorus. Traffic lights synchronize our movements, clocks regiment our days. Social media metrics, likes, shares, followers, quantify our worth, turning conformity into currency. We curate personas, polishing them until they gleam with approval. The psychologist Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to meet the world. But over time, the mask fuses to our skin. We forget where the performance ends and we begin. Here lies the tragedy. Conformity masquerades as safety. We cling to traditions, norms, and trends, believing they shield us from chaos. Yet in doing so, we surrender to a quieter tyranny. The writer Dostoevsky, in Notes from Underground, raged against this. His protagonist refuses to accept 2 + 2 = 4, not out of ignorance, but defiance, a scream against the stone wall of inevitability. But how many of us dare to scream? Rebellion, too, can be scripted. The nonconformist dyes their hair neon, buys vinyl records, or flees to a cabin in the woods, only to find these acts prepackaged as counterculture. The irony is exquisite. Even refusal is a kind of compliance. The crowd whispers not just follow but rebel this way. The existentialist Kierkegaard saw this trap. He wrote of the crowd untruth, where individuality drowns in the sea of the masses. To be authentic, he argued, one must leap into the unknown, a solitary, terrifying act. Yet there is hope in the cracks. History's brightest flames often sparked in dissent, Galileo insisting the earth moves, Rosa Parks keeping her seat, a teenager staging a climate strike. These acts begin with a quiet question. What if I choose differently? To notice the whisper of the crowd is to mute its power. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, consider this. Conformity is not a cage, but a current. To swim against it is exhausting, to float with it, effortless. But perhaps there's a third way, to move with the current, yet steer, to laugh when laughter is genuine, to mourn when tears are true, to agree only when your soul nods yes. The crowd will always whisper, but in the space between their words and your breath, there is a choice, small, fragile, and utterly yours. There is a peculiar terror in freedom, a vertigo that comes not from falling, but from the realization that no ground needs to catch you. Jean-Paul Sartre called this bad faith, the lies we tell ourselves to avoid the unbearable weight of choice. Imagine a pianist who dreams of composing, yet spends decades playing wedding receptions. Each time they dismiss their passion as impractical, they surrender to a role they never chose. The sheet music is written, they merely play the notes. Or all that pianist. Society hands us sheet music long before we sit at the keyboard. The river of life, as Sartre saw it, flows within banks carved by others. Graduate, marry, retire, repeat. These paths feel natural, inevitable, like gravity. Yet every so often, the water stirs. A whisper asks, "What if I left the riverbed?" Consider the costumes we wear, the entrepreneur, hungry, disruptive, a rebel with a business plan, the influencer, curated, luminous, a self-made myth, the minimalist, serene, detached, a monk of modernity. These roles are sold to us as identities, yet they are merely templates. We stitch ourselves into them, hemmed by societal seams. Socially, media amplifies this masquerade, turning life into a gallery of stock photos. We perform happiness, success, even enlightenment, mistaking the costume for the skin. Even rebellion is recycled. The vinyl records we buy to signal authenticity, the patchwork jackets worn to scream individuality, these too are mass-produced. Corporations sell us the aesthetics of dissent, reducing counterculture to a consumer category. The punk who spits on the system still feeds it, their rage packaged into a Spotify playlist. As the philosopher Herbert Marcuse warned, we become one-dimensional, our protests sanitized, our rebellions prepackaged. Plato's cave lingers here. Chained since birth, the prisoners mistake shadows for reality. When one escapes, the sun's blaze overwhelms them. Truth is too bright, too raw, so too with us. To step beyond society's cave is to face a blinding question. Who are you when no one is watching? Most retreat to the shadows, where the familiar dances safely on the walls. But what if we dared to burn? The existentialist Simone de Beauvoir, Sartre's partner in thought, argued that freedom is not a gift, but a task, a daily choosing. To live authentically is to confront the ambiguity of existence. No rules, no guarantees, only the flicker of our own uncertain light. It is terrifying. It is also the only way to cast off the costumes. Yet, here's the secret. The riverbanks are not stone. They are sand, shaped by every ripple of courage. The pianist who finally composes, the executive who quits to paint, the parent who redefines success for their child. Each reshapes the current. Tonight, as you hover at the edge of sleep, ask yourself, are you the river or the one who bends its course? The shadows will always dance, but beyond the cave, the stars await. You push your cart down an aisle, bathed in fluorescent light. The air hums with refrigerated chill, and the shelves stretch endlessly. 50 kinds of cereal, 100 flavors of yogurt, a kaleidoscope of tea blends. Freedom, the labels seem to sing. But your hand hovers, paralyzed. What began as abundance now feels like a trap. This is the paradox of too much. Psychologist Barry Schwartz called it the tyranny of choice. In a world where every preference can be catered to, decision-making becomes a minefield. The more options we have, the more we fear regret. That cereal box? What if the next one is healthier, tastier, more ethical? We exit the store exhausted, haunted by the ghost of every unchosen possibility. Centuries ago, choice was a simpler creature. A medieval baker sold one loaf. A potter shaped vessels for function, not fashion. Needs were concrete, desires modest. But modernity transformed choice into a specter, a thing both omnipresent and elusive. Sociologist Zygmunt Bauman described this shift as liquid modernity, a world where identity, like products, is temporary, customizable, and perpetually upgradable. We scroll, swipe, and edit ourselves, chasing a mirage of perfection. Nowhere is this more palpable than in love. Dating apps promise a universe of soulmates, yet endless profiles blur into sameness. A left swipe brings no relief, only the gnawing sense someone better lies just beyond. Algorithms designed to mirror our past clicks herd us into echo chambers. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han warns of the transparency society where constant comparison sterilizes passion. Romance becomes a buffet. We starve at the feast. Imagine a gardener who plants every seed they find. The plot bursts with color, roses, daisies, orchids, but without space to breathe, each bloom fights for light. So too with our minds. Streaming services offer 10,000 films, yet we rewatch old favorites. Spotify's 100 million songs leave us muttering, "There's nothing to listen to." Overwhelmed, we retreat to the familiar, while the unchosen options whisper, "You're missing out." Technology amplifies this anxiety. "You might also like," whispers Amazon, as if our desires are equations to be solved. Social media curates envy, selling lives we don't lead but feel compelled to mimic. Even self-improvement becomes a prison. Productivity apps, fitness trackers, and mindfulness podcasts chain us to the wheel of optimization. We chase the horizon, forgetting that joy lives in the unmeasured moments. Yet, there is a quiet rebellion. Consider a child in a meadow, content with the first dandelion they pluck. No rankings, no reviews, just the simple thrill of found. The Stoics knew this wisdom. Epictetus wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. To choose less is not deprivation, but clarity." In Japan, artisans practice kintsugi, mending broken pottery with gold, celebrating flaws as part of an object's story. What if we did the same with choice? Embrace the good enough, the slightly chosen, the imperfectly loved? The poet Mary Oliver offered a mantra. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? The question isn't answered in a supermarket aisle. Tonight, as you drift into the quiet, consider this. The paradox of plenty is not a curse, but a mirror. It reflects our hunger for meaning in a world of noise. Perhaps freedom lies not in choosing more, but in choosing deeply, in letting a single cup of tea, a single conversation, a single life be enough. The shelves will always gleam, but you, dear traveler, are free to walk away. You've wandered this maze for years. Its turns are etched into your bones, the career path taken, the love let go, the dreams deferred. You've raged at its walls, traced its grooves with trembling fingers, certain that freedom waits just beyond the next corner. But tonight you pause. For the first time, you notice the moss softening the stones, the way moonlight pools in the cracks like liquid silver. The maze is not your enemy, it is your teacher. The ancient Stoics knew this secret. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, wrote of the art of acquiescence, not passive surrender, but a dance with fate. Imagine a sailor who cannot command the wind, but learns to adjust the sails. The maze's walls? They are your wind. To fight them is exhaustion. To study them, revelation. Music swells gently, visuals of the traveler sitting cross-legged, lighting a small lantern. Mindfulness becomes your compass. Close your eyes, breathe. Feel the weight of expectations, the shoulds, the musts, the silent scripts, and let them settle like dust. Ask, does this path align with my essence, or am I chasing a shadow? A monk once told me, the loudest chains are the ones we stop hearing. To hear them again is to begin slipping free. History whispers of those who turned prisons into sanctuaries. Consider Boethius, writing The Consolation of Philosophy in a Dungeon, or Mandela, who mined wisdom from 27 years of stone and silence. Their power lay not in escaping the maze, but in refusing to let it colonize their minds. As poet Rilke urged, do not be frightened. If something stirs in your depths, let it take shape without smothering it. Even here, beauty thrives. A spider spins silk between stones. A dandelion cracks mortar with gold. The Japanese concept of shake, borrowed scenery, teaches gardeners to frame distant mountains as part of their design. So too with life. The maze's constraints, your job, your past, your body, are not flaws, but frames. Within them, you paint. Medieval monks built walled gardens, calling them hortus conclusus, enclosed paradises. They knew creativity flowers because of limits, not despite them. A sonnet's 14 lines, a haiku's 17 syllables. These walls shape art into meaning. Your life, too, is a sonnet. The maze gives it form. The final illusion is that the maze has no exit. But must you escape to be free? Astronomers navigate by stars they cannot touch. You, too, can steer by inner light. The existentialist Camus imagined Sisyphus happy, finding purpose in the eternal climb. Your labyrinth, with all its dead ends, is a cosmos in miniature. Every turn a chance to choose wonder over wrath. Tonight, as sleep's tide pulls you under, release the need to solve the maze. Let its walls cradle you. Let its silence hum a lullaby. You are not lost. You are home.